Joining us now, NBC News Chief White House Correspondent Peter Alexander, Senior Fellow of Middle East and Africa Studies at the Council on Foreign Relations, Stephen Cook. Also with us, a lead negotiator for the 2015 Iran nuclear deal, Robert Malley. He's now a lecturer at Yale University and the author of a new book out in September called Tomorrow is Yesterday, Life, Death, and the Pursuit of Peace in Israel-Palestine. All right, Peter, I'm hoping you can give us a little bit more clarity about the decision to use the term "we" in these social media posts.
Well, here's what we can tell you with certitude. We don't know exactly what the president's referring to when he says "we." Clearly, he is claiming some credit for the situation taking place in the skies over Iran right now. You remember ahead of these strikes, the president last week was pushing for diplomacy. Now, a very different message from this president only a short time ago in all caps on his preferred megaphone, Truth Social, posting unconditional surrender, calling for Iran's unconditional surrender, citing the possibility of killing the supreme leader there, referring, as you note, to the efforts taking place over Iran right now as "we," the president, with this seeming threat, at least a warning to the supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, saying that we know exactly where he's hiding, is an easy target. We're not going to take him out or kill him, at least not for now. We should note that just last week, NBC News was told that the president had rejected a proposal by the Israelis, which would have targeted the supreme leader of Iran. Now, perhaps the message appears to be changing a bit. And again, to the point about we have complete and total control of the skies over Iran. Of course, the U.S. has no fighter jets, to our knowledge, that are flying there right now. They have been helping Israel shoot down incoming weapons that have been targeting Iran. But, Katie, to your point, all of this ahead of a Situation Room meeting we're told should be starting either within this hour or certainly soon. The president is going to be speaking with his national security advisors with a real significant decision to make about whether the U.S. should weigh in directly in this war or should continue to pursue a more peace-type deal effort. The president yesterday and again today indicating that he seems to be in no mood to negotiate at this time. Katie?
At the very least, Peter, it seems like they want to appear as if they are standing side by side on Israel and that they're willing to go as far as it takes. They want to appear that way. And what's interesting is the way that it's fractured his coalition, the MAGA base. You have Tucker Carlson and Steve Bannon saying it's a bad idea, Donald Trump going after Tucker Carlson, but then J.D. Vance, who's long been the holder of America First below Donald Trump, don't get involved in foreign entanglements, didn't even want to bother with Ukraine. Peter, he posted a really lengthy message on social media that was directed at everybody questioning this. And he's talking about civilian nuclear power versus uranium enrichment. He's calling them distinct issues. Iran could have civilian nuclear power without enrichment, but Iran rejected that. Meanwhile, they've enriched uranium far above the level necessary for any civilian purpose. What is the significance of J.D. Vance getting involved in this and getting so firmly behind Donald Trump on at least, again, appearing as if the United States is going to attack Iran alongside Israel?
Well, there's a lot of ways to read this, and I think it's important that people sort of get an understanding that we don't know exactly what is going to happen here, but it does make a couple indications. One, it almost sounds like J.D. Vance, the vice president of the United States, is sort of priming Americans, preparing Americans for the potential that the U.S. will get further involved in what's taking place between Israel and Iran right now. Obviously, as you have indicated, that would go against sort of the president's America First messaging, at least at first glance at this point, right? The bottom line is this was an America First president who was calling for the end of these idiotic foreign entanglements, as J.D. Vance refers to them. But now he says that the president has earned trust on this issue, and he indicates that the president's primary concern, to the point of America First, is that no American assets, interests, or personnel are harmed in that region. Obviously, if Americans are targeted or hurt, the president would be quick to get involved. The question is, absent that, is the president still motivated to further engage? It requires a B-2 bomber, a 30,000-pound bomb, bunker-busting bomb, as you noted, that only the United States has right now. Is what we're seeing right now enough for the U.S. to get involved directly?
So just on what's happening right now, loud explosions have been heard in Tehran, according to our NBC News team that's on the ground. The IDF has just sent out a notice saying they've completed missile strikes and storage strikes in the heart of Iran. Rob, I want to ask you the question of, will this pressure Iran to fold, to come to the negotiating table and to, I don't know, get rid of their nuclear program, whatever the demands are from the Israelis and the Americans? Is this the sort of pressure that will make them move? You know pretty well, as somebody was the last group of people to negotiate directly with Iran on their nuclear program.
So it depends, coming to the negotiating table, they never wanted to leave it. So I don't think that's the question. It really is what you're asking. Are they prepared to agree to the unconditional surrender that President Trump just demanded? It's very hard for me to imagine that. I mean, this is a regime that has built its whole narrative over the notion of resistance and self-reliance. So they could make concessions. I could imagine today they're in a mood to make more concessions than a week ago. But if you're talking about a complete surrender, complete capitulation, that not only exposes them to more demands by the U.S. and Israel, but also potentially to domestic contestation. And that's something that would be more existential for them.
There is a lot of debate today about what the best plan of action is. What is going to be the best way to get Iran to negotiate and to successfully negotiate in the eyes of Israel and Iran? Thomas Friedman had an op-ed in the New York Times, and there's always been a lot of criticism on Friedman for the Iraq War and his support of it, initially at least. And he's arguing that the best way to get Iran to fold is for the United States to give Israel everything it wants to destroy Iran's nuclear capability, give them the bunker-busting bomb, or fly the plane that's needed, give them that, allow them to have that capability, and that will force Iran to fold. That sort of pressure will leave them no other choice. Do you agree with that?
Listen, I don't know where we've seen precedent for that in the Middle East. Certainly in the case of countries that have been subjected to that kind of pressure, their tendency for a regime like the Iranian regime is not to capitulate without being able to save face, because, again, that could affect their capacity to continue to rule at home. So very hard for me to see. I think a more likely scenario in that, if it's what you describe, is for the regime to try to hunker down, absorb the blows, and wait. For them, this is a long movie. It doesn't end in a day, in a week, in a month, even in a year. Hunker down and wait for the time where they could reassert themselves, and that could be in the far distant future.
Stephen, what about the rest of the region here? How are they viewing this? Because Iran is certainly no friend to a lot of the neighboring countries.
Well, it really depends on who you're talking about. If you're talking about the Saudis, the Emiratis, the Bahrainis, even the Egyptians, they will be publicly critical of the Israelis and what they've been doing, while privately admiring Israel's technical proficiency and hoping that this brings the Iranians finally to heel, whether there is actually regime change there or the Iranians are weakened enough that they no longer menace the region. Remember, the Iranians have spent decades building proxy forces that have sowed chaos throughout the region. They've been building this nuclear program that has also menaced the region. There's really no love lost among the major Arab states for the Iranians, despite whatever rapprochement they've had with them over the course of the last year or so.
What about the likelihood or the prospect of the U.S. getting more directly involved? Again, Donald Trump is saying we. He's saying we know where Khamenei is. We can find him if we want to. What is the risk for the United States to get directly involved, Stephen?
Well, there are significant risks. We've seen the United States get involved in conflicts and have a very hard time getting itself out. This may be something different. The Iranian people maybe take matters into their own hands. That certainly has been an unstated or barely unstated goal of the Israelis, is to weaken the regime to the extent that Iranians can take matters into their own hands. But even if Donald Trump had the inclination to go in and do nation building, he's basically neutered those parts of the U.S. government that are charged with doing that kind of thing if we were going to do it. So there are risks of getting involved in a conflict. As Rob has pointed out, this is a regime that's going to hang on and hunker down and use whatever resources it has at its disposal until it is forced to unconditional surrender. So one bombing run may not be it for the United States. And we know that Donald Trump doesn't have a lot of patience for foreign entanglements.
What would an acceptable, Rob, new nuclear deal be for the Iranians? Does it look like the JCPOA, or would they be willing to go farther to get rid of their uranium enrichment entirely?
again, as I said, and first of all, I think Steve Witkoff, the president's envoy, had some creative ideas that might have succeeded if the diplomacy had been given more of a chance, more time. Who knows? At this point, certainly the JCPOA is dead, and Iran can't aspire to something even resembling it. Could it even get what Steve Witkoff had put on the table, which was this idea of a regional consortium in which Iran would participate, and they might have been able to enrich uranium until such time as that consortium was set up? Again, that was a creative idea. I don't know right now whether either President Trump and certainly not Prime Minister Netanyahu are in the mood to contemplate that, which is why diplomacy, which in my view, it would be a better outcome than what we're seeing right now, but it does seem far away off because the gap between Iran's position and the American position, which was already not insubstantial, has just widened considerably.
Stephen, why now? Why did Benjamin Netanyahu choose to go after the Iranians now? Was it because of just a confluence of events, weaker Hezbollah, weaker Hamas, weaker Houthis, or were there domestic issues at play? Why now?
Well, I think there's a number of factors at play here. And the first is that the Israelis believed that they had developed intelligence that suggested that the Iranians were moving towards weaponization, or that weaponization would be easier for them, and that the Iranians were producing large numbers of ballistic missiles that would overwhelm the Israelis. I think the second piece of it goes back to the October 7th, 2023 attacks, in which, in the aftermath, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu vowed to, quote unquote, change the Middle East. They have, for better or worse, more likely worse, changed Gaza. They've changed Lebanon. They've played a role in changing Syria. And now they're taking upon themselves to try to change Iran as well, what they refer to as the head of the snake.